This is my Volkswagen Up GTI. I've been living with the car for 5 years, and in this video I'm going to tell you what this car's been like to live with, the things I don't like, the things I like, and also how much it's cost to run. Hello, welcome back to the interface. My name's Alex. This is my honest 5-year review of the Volkswagen Up GTI. Now in this video I'm going to cover the background and the reasons why I chose this car. I'm also going to cover the running costs and how much it's cost me to run so far. Any issues with the interior or any issues with the bodywork or anything that's gone wrong in that time basically. Any things that I've had to go into the garage for, as well as any accessories I've purchased for the car, what it's like to drive as well. And also anything I wish I got on the car, because I purchased this second hand around 6 months when it was 6 months old. There's a few options that I wish I would have got for the car, so we'll cover those as well. So the first thing is basically, when did I purchase this, how much I got it for, and the reasons why I bought it basically. So as I said, I purchased this in August 2019. It was £13,000 exactly. Now there's a bit of backstory for that. So the Up GTI was put on sale in late 2018, and then it was, late 2017, and then brought off sale early 2019 for emissions reasons. I think there was a mild revision to the engine, the way it does emissions or way it calculates its own emissions or something along those lines. So basically, long story short, it was off sale for around 6 months, and during that time I was desperate to buy one. So there was a garage I found on Auto Trader which had one for £13,000, which was about right really. At the time it did about 7,000 miles. So I've done, well, I suppose it's on 62 now, so I've done quite a few miles in it really. And now it replaced an old generation Volkswagen Up, so the first gen. I had a 2012 Up as my first car. I learned to drive in that. I took it on road trips, did things for work and all sorts of things. So it was sort of natural that I'd go for another Up, because I just love the size of these things. They're absolutely great. So what were the main reasons that I wanted to buy an Up GTI over a Polo or even a Golf? I really like the size of the Up. It's such a perfect size. It's so small. You can fit quite a lot of stuff in it despite its small proportions, and I just really wanted a car this size. And when the GTI version came out, it really sort of said something to me. It really appealed to me design-wise and also how it drove as well. So I remember when the magazines came out, Auto Express, Auto Car, they all published sort of first looks at the Up GTI. I was like, oh, I have to get one of those. So I'm really glad I did, because it really looks quite good. Obviously with this one we have a bit more performance, so we have about 115 brake horsepower, and it is turbocharged from a 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine. So there is also at the time there was also the Up TSI, which was 90 brake horsepower, also turbocharged. This one is a bit different, and it does interestingly borrow a lot from the Polo. So we do have a Polo steering rack, we do have a wider track, it's a little bit lower, 15mm lower I believe. There's a few bits and pieces on it that are a bit different, and testament to Volkswagen, it looks like, I remember reading some reviews when it came out at the time, that they've done quite a good job in terms of an accounting point of view. It wasn't an expensive car to develop, because a lot of the bits and pieces are from other vehicles. So as I said, the Polo bits are inside. The side skirt here, down here, is from the Volkswagen E-Up, and there are some bits from other sort of Ups of the same generation. So the front bumper is black, that just is a bit of plastic, no difference there really, so all good. And then the roof is black paint as well, so it's quite a cost-effective car for them to develop, and it wasn't really that expensive. Are there any options that I wish this car came with? Yes. So at the time you could spec this with a sunroof which opened, which is quite nice. You could also get auto wipers, so auto lights as well, reversing camera, which you'll see in a bit. The little screen inside is actually quite small, but there is a camera feed you can get on it. And then I wish it did have parking sensors as well. A weird option that I wish the car just came with a standard, was about 50-60 quid, was a height adjustable passenger seat. Not that it affects me greatly, because I never really sit in the passenger seat, but it would be nice to have that feature. And I think there was one more thing. It was the Beats sound system. I don't wish I had that, because the sound system sounds quite good, but we'll get to in a bit that in the boot it's quite a good size, but if you go for the Beats sound system you do lose a lot of space, because you do have the subwoofer inside there. So that's some of the options I wish it did have, to be honest. And then I did touch on it earlier, how many miles has this done? So I purchased it on around 6,000 or 7,000 miles. The car was only 6 months old, and I've done just over 60,000 now, so I've done quite a bit. And cosmetically the car doesn't really have shown any sign of that mileage, so I think it'll be happy to go a lot more, possibly double. Okay, let's look at some boring stuff now. So running costs. So I paid £13,000 cash for the car. I sold my old car for about 3,000. I can't remember how many miles it was on. So I have purchased a few things. So the insurance group for this car is group 17. It's actually quite good, really, considering this is a warm hatch. And then the insurance for me, 27, and that's £600 for the year. It did used to be a bit cheaper, but as we know, insurance has got a bit more expensive lately. And then, because the car is 5 years old now, I have purchased a extended warranty. So Volkswagen do this quite nice thing called the all-in plan. If you use the Volkswagen main dealer for that, I think it's about £35 a month, and you get extended warranty, services paid for, like the service plans, and then the MOT is sort of bundled in that as well. So you don't really have to pay much up front. Tax for this is a bit expensive. It's £190 a year. I say that in comparison to the old up, it was £20 a year. So, but everything's going up, isn't it? So, pardon the pun. We'll touch on the efficiency in a bit, but this is about 55 mpg. You can get a lot higher out of it. I've seen about 75. Tank's 35 litres, and I tend to fill it with premium fuel from Tesco. So it's about 50 quid to fill up. And you get about 350 miles-ish to the tank. I have seen 400, but realistically, this is a bit of a fun car, so you're not really going to hypermile it everywhere. So about 350 miles, which isn't too bad, really. So what have been the things that have gone wrong with the car since I've owned it, after 60,000 miles plus, and also 5 years of ownership? Well, mainly it's been two problems. So mainly to do with window seals and sort of hinges themselves, which frankly, to have those minor issues after that amount of time is pretty good. Some of the cars would definitely have more problems than that. So first problem, the passenger side window, a little bit of the rubber on the door seal had gone a bit loose, just generating a lot of wind noise after 60 miles an hour. Took it into the dealership, they put some glue around it. That didn't solve the problem, so I took it back in to get sorted, and the entire door seal was replaced at an expense to myself, which I'm not complaining about. That's absolutely fine. But I did go into the purchase knowing that I would likely have to pay for it myself, which is absolutely fine. So that was all solved. It's not been a problem. That was done a few years ago now. And then the second problem, twice it's happened now, where the rear windows, so on the 5-door up, you do have pop-out windows instead of solid glass. On the 3-door version, it is solid glass. You can't open those windows. What happened was just the gap between the rubber and the window just increased slightly. So the first time that happened, you just hear a bit more wind noise than usual. And also it let in a bit of water when it did rain, which was not great. So under warranty, they did replace the entire glass panel on the rear right driver's side rear door. And then after about a year or two, it happened again. So while it was in for its MOT and service, I just got them to have a quick look, and as it happens, it was just the screws that come slightly loose. So that is, frankly, in my opinion, absolutely fine. Just typical wear and tear stuff, isn't it? So really, reliability-wise, touch wood, it's been perfectly fine for me. Around the back, everything is still in working order. It's got the nice rear lights here, which we'll redesign from the first to the second gen. Got the GTI badge, little red strip there to give a nice nod back to the GTI heritage. This glass rear door is really nice. So on the Citigo and the Seat, this one is metal up to here. This is all lovely and stuff. And then under here is where the reversing camera would be if you had it. And then we have got a little plastic diffuser and the metal exhaust. So a little button here to open the boot. Got 251 litres in here. It is a split level loading arrangement. The only problems in the back here are the amount of exposed metal. So there's metal here, and I have actually dinged up the metal here. I have touched up the paint in a few places, but there are a few places where there's actually raw metal, which I need to address at some point. We've got a little light there. We have got some bag hooks and things, and we've got this little parcel shelf. And then we have got 3 levels of the boot. I've got all my crap in there. So I've got my emergency breakdown kit, a coat, different things, and a shovel and blankets and stuff. And then underneath the 3rd level is where the spare wheel is. And as I mentioned earlier, the Beats sound system would basically take away the space you got for the spare wheel. And yeah, you'd end up with a little bit less practicality. One thing to bear in mind is that the spare wheel that comes on the standard up will not work with this one. So that this very small spare wheel that you get for the standard ones, they basically don't clear the brake calipers at the front, the brake discs, sorry. So they might work on the rears. I haven't tested it, but just bear that in mind. I did have to purchase a full-size spare. I didn't have to purchase one. I could have just used a different one, but I've got one of the Oswald wheels. Just purchased it from Volkswagen directly. So it's in there with a spare tyre on it, so it's quite good. These seats do fold down quite nicely, so you do get a lot of space by doing that. So let's fold these down. And what I quite like to do with the up is turn it into like a minivan. Not a minivan, but like a minivan for tip runs and stuff. So it does, because the up is such a sort of square shape, you do get a lot of room in there. So you can fit boxes, like suitcases, if you're not carrying other people. There's so much room in the back of the up. It's quite impressive. So yeah, you could use it as like a mini delivery vehicle, be quite economical, especially for the electric one as well. So inside the Up GTI, Volkswagen haven't changed a lot of things from the standard Ups. I mean, in here it does feel quite different to me because I'm quite used to it now, but there are lots of little details, but it all adds up to a nice sort of package. So for the GTI, Volkswagen did add a 6-speed manual gearbox from the Polo, which is quite nice because all the Ups, apart from this one, are 5-speed only. So we have got that nice 6-speed box, and the reverse is sort of down and across like it usually is. And we have also got the Mark 7.5 and Polo sort of Golf GTI steering wheel. There are a few little bits on it, so we have got a lot of physical buttons, which is good. But there is a voice control button, which doesn't do anything because this head unit doesn't really support that properly. So when I purchased the car, the guy in the salesman said just the voice control button won't actually do anything. What I find really odd about that is that if you've got your phone connected to the Bluetooth head unit here, or even via USB, it doesn't even activate Siri or Google Assistant. So a little downside there, but I just gather that it's a borrowed part from other vehicles and it was done on a sort of budget, if you will. The seats are the standard Up seats, just covered in the traditional GTI tartan pattern. This is the Jakara pattern, and it is one of my favourite things about the interior, to be honest. We have got these nice seats here. They have held up well over time, actually. I've spilt coffee and stuff on my seats, so it's a little bit faded now. It is well overdue for a full valet and full clean at some point. But the rear seats, again, I haven't really carried many people in the back, so they are basically brand new. The only thing I would notice is when you get in and out of cars, like usually over a long period of time, the seats become a little bit wrinkled, and they have done that in some aspects. What's quite nice is that the GTI did come with the winter pack as standard, so we have got heated mirrors as part of that, and also 2-stage heated seats on each of the front seats here. So none in the back, but that's not a massive issue. The passenger seat, as I mentioned earlier, that's one of the options which I wish this car came with, is the height adjustable lever for that. I think it was around £50–60, but that would have been quite a nice addition to the interior, because I have travelled in the passenger seat 1 or 2 times and the position seems a bit odd. It just seems a little bit too low, and this one is a little bit higher traditionally. And then what's it like on a long journey? Well, I've done quite a few long journeys in it really over the time I've owned the car. 6–7 hours in one day sometimes. I know some people boast about that, they do that on their diesels, but for a budget city car, it's quite good really. The seats are quite supportive. I haven't felt uncomfortable. There's a lot of cars I've driven over the last 12–13 months since I've started this channel, which have got frankly quite really rubbish seats. So I'm quite happy with the seats in this vehicle. So for the in-car entertainment, there isn't really much happening. We have got this little screen here, which isn't touchscreen, but you control it with these buttons here and these dials as well. The step change from the first to the second generation Up was massive. The first gen just had a dot matrix screen, very similar to the driver's display here actually. It just had support for FM, AM, and some of them had an option for DAB. This contraption here for mounting your phone is quite cool. The first gen, you could opt a Garmin sat-nav and it would sort of dock in there. This one just holds your phone in there quite nicely, and there is a USB-A port at the back there, and this is one of the official Volkswagen cables which came with the car, and that's just got a right angle on it, so you're not going to damage any cables or anything. That's quite nice. What's quite good as well is that the USB-A port has a data pass-through to the radio, so if you are if you've got your phone plugged in, it is going to pass data through, such as music. It's sort of a replacement for your in-car entertainment. And really, when Volkswagen came out with this car and the in-car entertainment, sort of you could just use your phone for that, they were one of the first to do it, I think. I noticed that the Dacia Spring, the very cheap option that won't be sold in this country, but the ones sold in France and stuff, doesn't even have a screen. You have to use your phone. So it just cuts down on cost and makes things a bit simpler. Now this screen is relatively good. I'll just flick on the ignition. That's one thing to also point out, that the Up has a traditional old-fashioned key, so it's not keyless or anything. Sort of a bit of a nice charm to it. So flick on the ignition, turn the aircon down, and we have got this little screen here. It's got an SD card for updating the software. You've got the radio there as well. You've also got support for Bluetooth. You've got the menu. There's lots of options in there. Another thing I've noticed over the past year of driving different cars for YouTube is that a lot of cars now have a really, really rubbish DAB system. I live out in the country, and you'd expect that the signal for DAB is not going to be quite as good, but where I've driven this, I've driven other cars, this has exceptional DAB signal. Even new cars with either a little metal strip in the windscreen or a proper aerial on the roof just don't match this for consistency of signal. So, and that's on the same radio station and sort of things, just to keep it consistent. So for such a cheap car, relatively speaking, it's got quite an impressive radio system. And also, I mentioned that the speakers on this one are not the optional Beats sound system. So we do get 6 speakers in the car, and there isn't a subwoofer, but the Beats sound system adds Beats speakers and the subwoofer. I'm very happy that I didn't go for it, just based on the boot space, but to me, the speaker system in this sounds really, really good. One thing that the early reviews of the Up GTI did not point out is that this one has quite a nice mood lighting system. Pretty simple, a lot of cars now have mood lighting. This is quite a nice, affordable, cheap way of putting mood lighting in their cars. There's basically just a little gap here underneath the trim, and it's just got a red LED. So I'll switch to a night shot so you can see what it looks like. One thing I noticed over the few years of ownership is that the glue for this door card just becomes a little bit sticky when it's in warm weather. So if you're driving along and sort of leaning into it, you can hear this sort of creaking noise. Not a huge issue, just a little thing that you notice. And also, the grab handles are not in the roof. There aren't any grab handles. So you haven't got any handles to grab onto, but you just have the door ones here, which are quite a nice size. So in the back seats of the Up, we've actually got a decent amount of space, especially for the sort of the size car this is as well. So if you compare it to the Mini Cooper or the Fiat 500, those have a much less legroom than this does, and it's actually quite impressive. So my driver's seat is set up in my driving position. I'm around 5'6", 5'7", and I've got a good amount of space here, just a little bit there, and I can slouch and get a bit more comfortable if I need to as well, which is good. I've got these sculpted seats, bit of sort of room for your knees there, and then the floor in the back of the Up as well is quite good. It's quite flat, and it also extends quite far underneath the seat as well, which is good. So it means you can get your feet quite comfortable in there, and you can get quite a nice comfortable place to be. There isn't many cup holders in this car. There's only 2, so there's a little cup holder back here, but there isn't anything for the driver or the passengers back here. So we've got these very small pockets in the doors here, and we haven't got anything that comes down in the middle. So there's no armrest in the middle, there's no cup holders there. It is quite bare bones in terms of that sort of stuff for the rear passengers. We have got ISOFIX connectors in the back here, which is quite good. So you could have these seats quite far back, and you could get baby seats in the back if that's what you need a car for. But in terms of carrying passengers, it might be a bit of a squeeze. So it might be sort of a one-off car, sort of emergency sort of situation where you have to take people to somewhere. But overall, it's pretty good. There's a good amount of headroom back here as well. The headlining is also black, which does make it feel a little bit dark and enclosed. But obviously the standard Ups do have a sort of a lighter headlining. The black headlining is form of a sporty feel, really. These windows also do pop out, and they give you a little bit of a draft. There's no electronic windows back here, but overall it's a decent amount of space, and it's pretty good considering the size of the vehicle as well. So what is the Up GTI like to drive? Well, in a few words, it's incredibly fun. Volkswagen did an amazing job with this car. It's playful, usable, just nice to drive, and it can be quite good fun on some B roads. So in terms of suspension, this is a little bit stiffer and a little bit lower than the other standard Ups. So I think we're sitting about 50mm lower than the standard models. As you can probably tell from the video, I am being shaken around quite a bit. The suspension can be, at times, a little bit jiggly, or I guess the best word's bouncy. It's not particularly stiff. I drove a Mini Cooper SE JCW the other day, and that was just incredibly stiff and quite almost make you feel a little bit sick when you're driving. But basically, the suspension on the Up GTI could be a little bit softer. It's just a little bit too bouncy at times, and as you can see, I'm being jostled around a little bit, and this isn't a terribly bad road, so make of that what you will, basically. I will just mention how it behaves with bumps on the road. So potholes sometimes can send an entire shock through the cabin, and it can be quite jarring sometimes, and it makes you feel like you've damaged the car, but in reality it's just a very harsh shockwave through the vehicle. And also, because the Up GTI, the Citigo and the Me have all quite a square shape, at the rear especially, the back of the car has got quite a flat profile to it, so parking the car can be quite easy, especially in multi-stories and just tight spaces. You can see all around you. And as mentioned earlier, I would have quite liked to have parking sensors and a reversing camera, but in reality you probably don't need it. It's just such an easy car to place on the road. The back of the window is basically the back of the car, so it's quite easy to sort of place on the road. And before I go on to how fun this car is to drive, the Up GTI is one of those cars that got released at a very good time. it's only just starting to become a thing now where a lot of cars have a lot of annoying safety technology on them. So lane assist, blind spot monitoring. Well, blind spot monitoring is actually quite good, but that's a bad example. But like some Chinese cars have cameras inside them to watch what you're doing, and it'll mention to you if you're not paying attention. Lots of touchscreens, lots of horrible climate control controls, but this is as back to basics as it can get, really. So we've got a manual key to turn it on, we've got washing machine style controls for the heating and the air conditioning, perfect. Old school kind of radio, got a little bit of tech if we need it. We've got old school dials on here, but everything is just quite manual. There's no fluff that goes with it. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, I would have quite liked to have some of the automatic features, but there is something quite refreshing driving all these modern cars now and just getting back in this after a few weeks in different cars. So it is quite a nice refreshing thing to get back into. Now let's get into how fun this car is to drive. So I've got a 1 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine with 115 brake horsepower. There are people that have put this with 150 horsepower with some different modifications. The only modification I made to this is I've put an aftermarket air filter in. So these come with a paper filter as standard, and all I've put in is a foam filter that you can wash. And as soon as I put that in, you can notice, you can hear a lot more of the air coming into the engine, which is quite nice. Get it on some twisties. This car is very, very fun. We've got a 6-speed manual gearbox in the Polo, and we can see what it's like to chuck into some corners. So I'm going to turn down this sort of quiet lane now. We're going to see what we get up to. So let's turn into here. There we go. So it's got quite impressive acceleration. The traction control can be a little bit interfering at times. I did disable the traction control once. If you've got an OBD reader, you can actually log into the car and turn it off, and that unlocked to, it felt like 20-30 horsepower. It was crazy. I think the traction control just holds the car back at certain times. So yeah, brakes are pretty good. We've got disc brakes at the front, we've got drums at the rear. This car's not fast enough to require discs at the rear. It'll just make the servicing a bit more expensive. I know some people did complain about that when this car came out, but I don't think it's a problem really. Yeah, it handles really well. These seats, yeah, they don't hold you in that massively well, but we can, yeah, get up to some fun. The acceleration on this is very good, especially in town when you're accelerating between traffic lights. It picks up speed very well. Yes, the top speed isn't as impressive as other cars, but like it's not really designed for that. I think other people have got about 120 out of these. I haven't had the opportunity to test this yet, but yeah, they do perform very well, and you can drive it all day like this, and it will still get 30-40 mpg, which is just ridiculous. I've never seen it go below 28 mpg really. These things are like little rocket ships. Yeah. I put the Michelin Pilot Sport 5s on this. Did have the 4s before. Makes a massive difference in the corners. I remember whatever tyres these came with as standard, I'll put a picture on screen of what they used to look like. I think they're Bridgestones. But after reading some stuff on Facebook, some forums and stuff, other people have said they put these Michelins on these cars. Yes, they're a little bit too wide, but they fit the car fine. They provide a lot more grip in the corners, a lot better handling, and it gives you a lot better confidence when you're going quite hard on B roads. So yeah, that's one of the things I would recommend. If you've got an up GTI, go and put some Pilot Sport 5s on them. They're about 100 quid a tyre, quite affordable really, in terms of tyres that you get for large SUVs and stuff, and you'll love it basically. Look at that, just absolutely ridiculous. Makes such a great noise as well. It's got that little sound synthesizer in the engine bay there, which just pipes noise from the engine through the cabin. It's not a fake, there's no fake noise for the speakers. All it's doing is just piping noise in from the engine bay basically. So that's what it's like to drive the Up GTI. So in conclusion, what has the Up GTI been like to live with? Well, it's been really, really good. I love the way this car looks. It's really, really sort of eye-catching. And when you park it and sort of look back and walk away, you think, oh, that car looks really good, especially when it's clean, which is not a common thing at the moment. The alloys do seem to gleam quite nicely at night time, which looks really cool. Yeah, just generally the styling of this car was one of the things that really, really appealed to me. And then even still, 5 years on, it looks really, really good in my opinion. And then just quickly, how happy am I with the car as well? Yeah, it has been perfect. Yeah, two little minor things with window seals have gone wrong, as I mentioned in the video. They are very small little niggles really, to be honest. And as I mentioned, the annoyingness of the car is non-existent, doesn't bong or bing. There's no things that go off and warn you that you're not looking properly. It's just a very, very unannoying car to drive, that even is a word. So it's really good. And now finally, are there any regrets about purchasing this car? Well, at the time, no one was sure if the VW GTI was even going to come back on sale. It was that 6-7 month period where it was just in limbo land and Volkswagen weren't selling anything. So I decided to not miss out on the price going up and just purchase one. Yes, it didn't have the options that I wanted on it, but overall it's been pretty good. But yeah, as I said earlier, I did want the sunroof, I did want the parking sensors, but overall, to be honest, this car is very small. Do you really need parking sensors? Do you really need a camera? It's not a problem really. You can see exactly where you're parking in this vehicle, so it's quite easy. But yeah, the only reason I do regret it is because I paid basically the same price as new for a 6-month-old car, that I could have had that nice sort of new car experience and sort of track it through its build process in Germany. But yeah, it's been absolutely great. And then finally, what is the future going to look like for my Up GTI? Am I going to get a different car? Am I going to sell it? Or what am I going to do? So my plans for the car originally were that this is going to be my car for the long term. It's going to be one of the cars I'm going to keep for a very long time. Obviously, people's situations change. You have to sell things. And my genuine sort of thought in my heart and the head is that I don't want to get rid of the car. I don't want to sell it. So that's really, really a good thought. And there's lots of cars I've driven recently in the last 12, 13 months of doing YouTube that I thought, oh, these are cool. These are quite nice. I quite like one of these. And then once you get back in this car, you think, yes, it's sort of a nice sort of refresher to get back in a car that's not annoying, because some cars are just so annoying. Obviously, when you take this car on the B road, it is really, really fun, really, really enjoyable to drive. When you drive it in town and sort of when you go through London or you're doing different things like that, it's very tedious using the manual gearbox, and that has made me want an EV as a second car, which would be quite nice. But yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do, get an EV as a second car at some point and keep this, because it is quite a iconic car, and I can see these going back up in value at some point. Not that I'd sell it when it was that value, but I can see myself keeping this car for a very, very, very long time. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed learning about my decisions of purchasing this car, what I'm going to do with it next, and different things. So that's been a look at my Up GTI over the past 5 years. Now, if you've enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to the Interface Cars channel. On this channel, we cover lots of different automotive subjects, EVs, petrols, diesels, everything. So if you're into that sort of stuff, please subscribe to the channel. There'll be lots more content coming pretty soon. Like this video if you did. That will let other people know that you enjoyed this video. My name's Alex, and we'll see you again next time.